What everyday skill becomes suspicious if you're too good at it? I have a friend who could memorize numbers, especially plates of vehicles. He'd then be able to recall it after months in totally random conversations. Many people asked how we'd know he wasn't bluffing. Here is the thing, I know this guy from college. You can imagine how all of us would have gone to lengths to verify such things. Also, it works out to be useful in many situations, and he'd be somewhat of a personal Google for a few of us, like, hey, I can't seem to remember this guy's number, do you remember? Strep throat tests. Used to get strep a lot as a kid, so by the time I was tested for it as a 20-year-old, I had the process down. They stick in the big popsicle stick to hold down your tongue, and then they swab the back of your throat while you try not to gag. Well, I happened to be tested by a relatively new, young, attractive doctor this particular time, and when he complimented me on doing well on the test and not gagging, my response was, "Thanks, I've had practice." If not suspicious, it was at the very least mortifying after realizing the implication of what I said. MS Excel, I found that by taking over reporting from others because it took them so much time, I'd automate it to pull from the database where the previous owner was spending 2 hours a day copy and pasting hundreds of cells. A couple hours work once and I hit a button. Done. I'd used to release right away, even with a script, to open, refresh, save, and email it. This caused people to not trust the numbers, so now I still pull in the data, but hold off on releasing it for a bit, even a bit late on occasion. Edit. I see a lot of people wanting to learn Excel. I did a lot of trial and error learning. I am mid-50s, so I have some time under my belt. Learning a simple programming language helps. I learned BASIC as a kid and Pascal and Fortran later. VB is the most useful at this point, though. In Excel, you can add a developer tab. Google it. It will show you how to add it to your Excel. You can record macros that record your steps when you do things like insert a column, copy a row, etc. You can then see how it works. MR Excel, not to be confused with MS Excel, is a great resource. Also, learn VLOOKUPs as they are very helpful and you can get how other formulas work. Finally, Google knows all. Cleaning liquid spills. If Junior knocks over their glass or the cat gets too close and personal with the fish tank, most people will just tend to throw a bathroom towel over it or get out the wet vac. Not super effective and tends to allow time for staining. Some salt, aerosolized carpet foam, and some paper towels will clean up anything like it was never there and in record speed. And all for the low, low price of making people uncomfortable as they imagine you as a mob cleaner. For extra points, using this method to clean blood out of carpets or off cheap porous tile equals people's faces are funny as fuck. Being unbothered by blood and guts. I'm a veterinarian. I've spent days up to my elbows in all manner of bodies and parts and fluids. I can watch surgery or necropsy videos over lunch. I did an eye surgery on Tuesday and somebody had to catch the new kid. The big ones aren't allowed to get faint. It's very inconvenient. Related aside, when the nice young lady at the bank says, "Oh my God, there's blood on your shirt," assuring her that it isn't your own, in fact, offers no reassurance. We play this drinking game where you take the paper bag from the store, put it on the floor standing up, and you have to bend down on one foot and grab it with your teeth. Each round you trim a few centimeters off the top and keep lowering the bag until there's a winner. One of my very unathletic friends at the time would easily win every round. It would just be him, and he was flexible enough to get the bag only 6 inches off the ground. People were super impressed, and I joked, "It's all that practice from sucking your own dick." And the look he gave me, combined with the awkward laugh, made me think I might have been closer to the truth than I would have hoped. Breaking into someone's car. A few years ago, I was at a new job and a coworker locked her keys in her car. I got the door open in under a minute. The security guard watched me and had some concerns with the speed at which I opened that car without damaging it. The truth of the matter is that the guard wasn't paying attention completely to what I was doing. My first car was a two-door sports car, and I learned about a design flaw with those cars when my dumbass locked my keys in the ignition. She had a similar car, and her keys in the ignition, so I took advantage of that design flaw to get her door open without damage to the car. Remembering things for other people. I pick up random things in conversations, not necessarily in a conversation with me. I like to listen. I'll wish you good luck on that special thing tomorrow. I'll tell you happy birthday. I'll tell you not to forget something. It has saved myself and people around me from getting into shitty situations. Imagine a guy at work who tells you not to forget your wife's birthday next week. Yeah, I'm that guy. ADD has taught me to remember the things I pay attention to. Spatial awareness. I can look at something and tell you whether or not it'll fit onto a wall, into a box or car, through a hallway or stairwell, etc. I was at a shipping store a few months ago, and a guy was in line behind me trying to figure out which size box to get for the box he was trying to fit into it. I pointed at a specific size and said, "That one, but only if you put your box in this side up." It slid in perfectly, and he gave me the weirdest look. Somehow, though, I always seem to bump into the corners of tables. In my line of work, sales, there is a method called mirroring, where you try to mimic the customer's tone and energy to be more relatable. I've spent many years trying to read people and am introverted as it gets, so I like to think I do this very well, with my fellow men being the easiest to read. Well, my employer noticed this and refers to it as an advanced sales tactic. They pulled me into a Zoom with other employees who suck at closing sales and had me try to teach it to them. This might sound weird, but not being a creep. I met a girl online, really interesting and a space freak like me. Stopped talking to me after a while, but eventually we became good friends. When I asked her why did she basically ghost me for a few months that one time, she said she thought I was in a relationship and was hiding it. The reasons she listed: 1, I didn't flirt with her at all. 2, I didn't ask for her WhatsApp number. 3, I didn't ask her to meet me. 4, I didn't send her an unsolicited image and or tried sexting with her. She thought it was too weird for a guy to start talking and not do any of these things. Apparently the standards are far too low for men. Not that I was actually interested in her that way. I just wanted to talk about space with someone. Anyone. My grandpa, I swear he was magic, could always find a front row parking spot for anywhere we went. It didn't matter if people were parking out in the grass. If he drove up to the front, there was always a spot. If there wasn't, then immediately someone would pull out of their spot to leave. Always. Sadly, he did not pass down this magic to anyone. This matches well with my grandma, who is absolutely 100% a fae. It doesn't matter what kind of plant it is or what weather we have, her plants are always perfect. They bloom early and keep blooming way longer than they should. We had an ice storm this last winter that took out so many trees. Every tree around my grandma's house was damaged and had broken limbs, not hers. Her trees were fine. What? Reading body language and being particularly sensitive to people. I have a friend who's so good at it, he knows what you're going to do before it ever even crosses your mind. First time he pulled the whammy on me was when I was just about to look for the remote, and he handed it to me. No looking around or anything, I just shifted slightly, about to get up, and he goes, "Here's the remote." Seemed pretty cool at the time, but then a few weeks later we were eating out together, and I couldn't decide on whether I should get dish A or dish B. He told me to get dish B, even though I'd never even voiced which dishes I was deciding over. I swear he's almost psychic. To be honest, anything with being sneaky. So you know how strict parents often raise secretly uninhibited sneaky kids? Well, guess what I am. In front of my dad, until I was 16, I was calm, collected, and submissive. In reality, that was just because I didn't let him see who I really was until certain lines were crossed, and I got rebellious, as a boomer might say. I won't break down my whole deal to say why I know these things. Also, I'm not claiming to be a super spy or anything. These are just skills that meet the above criteria and that I've picked up and improved over the years. These are all things that seem normal if you just know how to do them, but I've had it happen more than once where I've implemented one and the people with me have had questions. Things like 1. Picking locks. Sure, like 1 in 3 people can pick a simple or cheap lock, but when you know how to open an electric lock or magnetic security pad, or maybe use the old sound pressure method, you know, the one, that thing people do to code locks where they put their ear against it to open a more complicated lock and have it actually work, people give you a look. 2. Moving quietly, reducing visibility. I've met a lot of people who think they can be physically stealthy. It's funny because, yeah, maybe your footsteps are quiet, but I can hear you breathing, you fucking pug. Or maybe you're good at hide and sneak, but I dare you to cross a room. This is what an overly strict father really teaches you. Learn where the shadows are, including your own, and put your hand over your nose lined up with the bridge's slope and take long, slow, soft, deep breaths. There's so much more to this one. Oh my God. I've seen a lot of people say remembering schedules on here, but in my opinion, there's so much more to it. I'd more say 3, learning someone's patterns, not just their schedules, but the things that might make them deviate from it. This is actually a good life skill to have and really makes you a better friend. Knowing when something is different about your friend's behavior can help you help them if something less than good is affecting their lives. But as soon as you start seeing other people's lives through the little windows they give you and putting the pieces together accurately, then you need to watch yourself. Last is my favorite. 4. Double talk. I suppose because of my father, I get really bad anxiety from lying, so I don't. Period. Not even little things. I just skirt the truth. I either give an adjacent answer in an indirect way that changes the initial question or implies an answer where none is to be had, or change the subject slowly. I'll answer with a question, tell a long-winded story as an answer, over-clarify, etc. Sure, lots of people do it, but you have no idea how satisfying it is to get out of trouble, not because you lied and are thus accountable, but because you slipped away with no trouble. Makes you feel smart. Granted, that still makes me feel super guilty, no matter how minor the issue. TLDR, if you had a strict parent or parents, you probably know the little secrets to living with them. Stay quiet, stay out of sight, don't let them see the mistakes. Not saying that's healthy, but you know what? Maybe that's the parents' fault. I have an uncannily strong sense of smell, which means I can go to the bathroom in school or work and know who was there based on the products used when people freshen up. Have also walked down the main street in Ginza and smelled someone I'd met 6 months ago before I turned around and saw them walking by behind me. I can also predict if it's going to snow based on how the air smells. Twice I said in the middle of June, weird, it smells like snow, and twice there was a freak snowstorm overnight. All the people who laughed at me were giving me weird stares when they realized everything was covered in a layer of fresh snow. I guess I seem like some kind of voodoo witch. I can also tell how many hours it's been since your last meal or who you met before me just based on scent, which is why it is nigh impossible to cheat on me. Literally using any basic Linux distro in a public place. Catch is, you don't have to be good at it. At all. I have had librarians call the cops because they thought I was hacking their network when I literally typed sudo apt get update followed by sudo apt get upgrade. Very simple terminal commands that do nothing but update your software or drivers, etc. and she got so freaked out by the scrolling text that she thought I was melting her network. Jesus freaking Christ, I'm updating my laptop. Stop watching tech thriller movies from 1999. I went to a restaurant once while on vacation in Panama City Beach. Awesome little Italian place. I ordered a seafood dish with the pink sauce. It was incredibly good, so when we returned to the same restaurant 4 years later, I already knew what I wanted. The waiter came over and I recognized him from the first time we were there. He knew my order. He said the dish name to me and said, "With pink sauce, right?" I have no idea how he could have remembered. I didn't say it out loud before he came over. If he really remembered me, that's insane. I don't know if it's an everyday skill, but gardening. I've had every old fart on my block walk by my house and admire my flowers, then proceed to tell me they will call the police if they see me growing pot. Old people are bold AF. Like, "Sir, I'm a psychopath. Please don't piss me off, or you'll become fertilizer for my flowers." I did have one old guy who said if I did grow pot, he wouldn't call the cops, only if I shared some with him. Good deal, Jerry, but for the last time, I do not grow pot. My yard is a butterfly garden, for fuck's sake, and growing flowers is my therapy. Please get off my lawn or become a part of it. Working hard. I build roads for a living from beginning to end. Some days are tough when it's hot and we're slip paving 2,000 plus yards of concrete. It can be fairly physical, and I'm 43. I go to work every day with one underlying goal: to outwork everyone else. I do a lot of the thinking as well, but I try not to let those 18 to 20-somethings outwork me physically. If they do happen to outwork me, I gain respect for them. Being a leader, I also try to be upbeat and energetic as well, so I think they probably assume I'm on something. Walking quietly. I surprise my friends for fun with it now. I walk straight up from their front and they can still not notice me until I whisper, "Boo." The main problem is you default to however you are used to walking, and I used to have a nickname of Foxtrot for around 2 years, replaced by a dumber nickname, sadly. So I usually say hi and call out names from 5 feet away, or I scare people by the time I walk up close. I think it started because my mother complained about how I would scrape my shoes on the ground, so I started walking quietly ever since, probably. Pocketing lighters. Back in the day when you could smoke in bars, my wife, then girlfriend, was amazed I would end up with about 6 a night. We filled up a bowl with them and never had to buy lighters. 20 years later, I'm still doing it, and still not consciously aware that I am doing it. I end up with a pile of lighters on the nightstand by my bed that I have to return to the bowl. This is after she put these metal sheaths on them to make them heavier. Dissing people and taking a punch. I don't want to sound like some idiot from r/I'm very badass, but I've been hit a lot and usually I get right back up. People usually assume that I'm abused at home. My dad doesn't actually abuse me, nor my mom. They hit me, but often I'm a douche and deserve it. So whenever I get hit, I won't often cry unless it's to the no-go zone, and I'll hunch over. Also, being quiet. My mom has said I'm going to kill her with the amount of times I've snuck up trying to say goodnight. Putting things together and knowing what's about to happen or what happened and why. Kind of hard to explain, but like say somebody lost something while we are out. I can understand their frame of mind when they're fucked up, use my own frame of reference, and pretty much find the thing they are looking for. But then I seem like I'm just hawking them and creeping. It's useful for personal things. I lost this tiny opal stone out of a ring I had at work, and I really liked it, and I wanted it back. I work in a factory, and I just begin putting the pieces together. It took me 3 days to figure it all out. Then I went into work one day and walked right up to the walking beam and looked under it and found it. But if I don't like someone, I won't help them. Being silent. Everyone either assumes you're up to something or they forget you were there and then get creeped out when they see you. It's super annoying. I'm silent a lot. I just don't have a lot to say about certain subjects and even less than nothing to say about others, and sadly that's all some people want to talk about that I'm forced to interact with in my life. I've adapted, saying things like cool, yeah, and sup repeatedly while people are around just to avoid this issue. I never mean what I say or even know which one I use, as it's basically just a noise to alert my presence and nothing more. I know this is going to get lost, but constantly knowing what's going on around you. In social situations, I have a tendency to keep track of every conversation and where people are in the room. So half the time, if people are looking for someone or something, I'll have noticed the person or the thing at one point, and I'll be able to help. I also have a tendency to actively listen and respond to multiple conversations at once, and that freaks people out. It especially doesn't help that my ADHD makes me the type of person to misplace my things easily, so it catches a whole lot of people off guard when I know where their friends or keys are. Moving through unreasonably tight and cluttered spaces normally. My friends and I used to hang out at an extremely cluttered warehouse that belonged to a hoarder friend. It was full to the point where moving at all without getting stuck on something or causing a garbage avalanche was difficult. And there I was, just gliding through hills of hoarded garbage like some kind of ghost. They told me it was creepy. Guessing passwords. I had video game addiction during young age. My parents changed the password once a week because I kept guessing it. When they say a word in a weird way, paying close attention to their facial expression, listening to their tapping sound or the state the keyboard is in are things that helped me. But the key is to know how the person thinks. I'm also able to remember most passwords that I have seen once inadvertently. Cleaning out stains. I cut my hand pretty badly once and blood got into my white shirt. I tried to clean it myself, but the stain never got out. I told my mom, who told me to bring it with me when I came back for Christmas break, and she cleaned it. By the way, she didn't even bleach it. Her ability to clean stains so well has since then been suspicious to me. I'm very good at getting detailed information in my peripheral vision. I don't have to be looking directly at someone to study them. Makes me sound like a pervert, but it's a skill I developed because of working and living in situations where letting someone know you're watching them had bad consequences. But so was being ignorant of what they were doing. It's really fucking handy. Also, somewhat related, reading upside down has had its benefits. This will get buried, but for me it was reading. I was really fast with good comprehension starting at a very young age, and so I got a lot of doubt that I was actually understanding what I read, and every teacher would say I rushed through material. It still pisses me off that I had to constantly defend myself about it, although my parents would always back me up, so that was good. They lived with the evidence long enough to know I was telling the truth. Taking off a woman's bra, I'm a man, one-handed. Years ago in high school or college, I read that you can remove a bra one-handed by putting your thumb and finger on either side of the clasp and making a snapping motion. When I had the opportunity to try it out with my girlfriend, it actually worked. But then, any time I did it with someone new, I'd get a raised eyebrow and the "done that a few times, huh?" look.